I can't take it anymore. I want to see mommy soon.
My skinny 5-year-old granddaughter pleaded with me with empty eyes. She had been chained up inside the warehouse where I went to sort through my late daughter's belongings. I thought you were missing. And your mom has already passed away. I want to see my daughter too. I felt exactly the same way, and I couldn't stop crying. Hearing my granddaughter repeatedly say she wanted to see her mom, I made a decision. Then, shall we go to the heaven together with Grandma? But just as I was about to put my hands around my grandson's neck, I noticed something very familiar. Is that? At that moment, I realized a certain truth, and I vowed to seek revenge. On my daughter's wedding day. I wish you all the happiness, I said joyfully to Alice. My name is Mary, and I'm 58 years old, working as a medical secretary at a nearby hospital. If I do say so myself, after my husband passed away early, I worked so hard to raise my daughter Alice and her brother Terry.
Mom, thank you always. You must be tired. Let me give you a shoulder massage.
She's an attentive daughter like my kind-hearted husband. She always spoke to me like that, and it comforted me. Since becoming an adult, Alice has been running an online shop and seems to have quite a lot of savings. My daughter Alice married a wonderful elite businessman Dylan a few years ago and was blessed with an adorable granddaughter Zoe. My son Terry also graduated from university and became independent. I felt relieved and content. However, on a hot summer day, my daughter suddenly came home with Zoe. Her expression was dark, and she didn't look well. What's wrong? You seem down. Did something happen?
Well, it might just be my imagination, but lately, I feel like Dylan's attitude towards me has been getting colder.
According to my daughter, her husband always comes home late at night and smells of alcohol. In addition, my daughter said that when she tries to talk to him, he ignores her or shouts "shut up." At worst, he hits and kicks her.
And on top of that, he says since I have my own income, he doesn't need to contribute to our living expenses. He claims he's saving his income, but he won't show me his bank statement.
I'm worried. What's going on with Dylan? It must be tough for you. Then she started crying, biting her lips. For my resilient daughter to express such vulnerability, the situation must have been incredibly difficult for her. I gently spoke to her. I understand. How about living apart for a while? If you ever want a divorce, you can always come back. However, my daughter didn't nod in agreement.
Thank you. I'll wait and see a little more. Talking to you has made me feel a bit better.
Really? Are you sure you're okay?
I have Zoe, so I can't make a decision right away.
She forced her face into a smile to reassure me, and continued speaking.
Besides, Dylan is kind by nature. If I keep trying my best, maybe he'll be kind again. I'll do my best a little more.
And so, my daughter left with my granddaughter, looking sad. If only I had listened more attentively that day, perhaps things wouldn't have turned out like that. Afterwards, I would come to deeply regret my actions. 1 month later. Suddenly, I received a call from Dylan saying that my daughter had passed away. No. That can't be true. How could I believe my own child's gone so suddenly? My son-in-law said Alice took Zoe with her and jumped into a waterfall to end her life. Moreover, there was a note left on the computer, almost like a farewell letter, saying, I've lost confidence to keep living. I'm leaving with Zoe.
Because of Alice, I lost my precious daughter. What are you going to do about it?
Wait, what do you mean? I was bewildered by the shock of my daughter's death and Dylan's intense words.
Because of your lack of discipline, she became such a horrible woman that she even dragged our daughter into this. So, it's your fault.
My fault.
Obviously, isn't it?
Dylan, looking pained, told me an even more unbelievable thing. Apparently, Alice's body was found, but my granddaughter was nowhere to be found and missing.
I don't care about that woman at all. I just want my daughter back.
In the end, Dylan, thinking much of the public image, hastily arranged a private funeral and scattered Alice's ashes in the sea. What? Unable to attend my beloved daughter's funeral, I fell into the depths of despair. After that, I couldn't focus on anything, and I took a leave of absence from work. Whether I was asleep or awake, the images of my daughter and granddaughter kept coming to my mind very often, and I couldn't stop crying. It felt like there was an endless source of tears in the human body. 1 week later, I received a call from my son-in-law.
I want to move on quickly, so I'll take care of sorting through Alice's belongings. I'm going to throw away everything that belonged to Alice.
Please wait. I interrupted him with great effort. I couldn't see my daughter one last time, but please let me at least take care of sorting through her belongings. Dylan seemed reluctant to agree with my words, but I couldn't back down. Sorting through belongings in just 1 week is far too soon by any measure. Moreover, considering the concerns my daughter had previously shared with me, I couldn't fully trust Dylan. That's why I wanted to see for myself if there were any clues or evidence to understand the situation better. I couldn't sit still, so I went to my daughter's house the following evening. Since I couldn't reach Dylan, I waited at the front door, but he didn't return even late into the night. I reluctantly called him again, and he immediately exploded in anger.
It's so rude of you to show up like this. I'm working late today, so just go home. Besides, I told you I'll take care of Alice's stuff. Don't ever come to my house again.
I'm sorry for interrupting you. But Alice gave me a spare key just in case. So, is it not okay if I use it to get in?
Ha! No way. Absolutely not. Unbelievable. You're such an audacious old hag. I'll sue you.
I was shocked by his cold words, but Dylan didn't seem to care and continued yelling angrily before abruptly hanging up the phone. I didn't have the courage to enter the house without permission, so reluctantly, I started to leave. However, at that moment, I suddenly noticed a strange odor hitting my nose. It smelled like rotting garbage. What is this smell? I followed the scent to its source and found it coming from the warehouse in the backyard shed. I went to the back of the warehouse, having a bad hunch, and peered through a window. Then I saw something moving. It was dark, making it difficult to see clearly, but it looked almost like a living creature. What is that? I felt a shiver down my spine, but I knew I couldn't just leave it. I tried to open the warehouse door, but the old lock was broken, and something like a makeshift bar was preventing the door from opening from the inside. However, after I shaked the door vigorously a few times, I managed to get it open. And then, cautiously, I entered inside. There, to my utter shock, I found my missing granddaughter chained up. Zoe. I rushed over in a panic, and my granddaughter looked up at me with a puzzled expression.
Grandma.
Around my granddaughter, there were lunchboxes emitting a rotten smell and partially eaten bread scattered. Additionally, there was a bucket containing waste. This is awful. Poor thing. I was more shocked by the situation than relieved by Zoe being alive. And gently, I hugged my little granddaughter. But, she was thin and had vacant eyes.
I can't take it anymore. I want to see Mommy soon.
I couldn't stop crying when I heard that.
Grandma, take me to Mommy.
All right. Shall we go together? As I felt a strong sense of loss from losing my daughter, I placed my hand on my granddaughter's neck, thinking of going to heaven with my granddaughter. At that moment, I noticed a necklace around Zoe's neck. It was a necklace I had given my daughter as a protective charm, and hanging from the necklace was a key that shouldn't have been there. Where did you get this key from? I asked, recognizing the key, and my granddaughter explained to me.
This is.
After hearing what my granddaughter said, I felt a surge of anger that made my blood boil. So that's what happened. I'll never forgive this. I found a pair of pliers in the shed and managed to cut the chains. Then I took my granddaughter and headed to someplace. Then I resolved to seek revenge in place of my daughter. The next day, my son-in-law stormed into my home. His eyes were bloodshot, his brow furrowed, and his face was bright red, a truly terrifying visage.
Hey! You took Zoe, didn't you? She's my daughter. Give her back.
Oh. What are you talking about?
I called you so many times last night and you didn't answer. You must be the one who took her.
With his face turning even redder, my son-in-law continued shouting, seemingly unaware of his own contradictions in what he was saying. But Zoe is missing, isn't she? Then, my son-in-law faltered for a moment in his words and glared at me intensely. After letting her go through such horrible things, how dare you call yourself a father?
She's a selfish daughter who wouldn't listen to her parents, so I was just disciplining her. Besides, Alice took her own life because she was troubled by raising Zoe.
Dylan listed out how difficult and uncontrollable his own child was. I've never heard such a thing before.
Of course, if I told you, you'd just spoil Zoe. That's why I said she was missing. It's my right as a parent to do whatever I want with my child. It's none of your business, old hag.
But chaining her up and locking her up like that goes beyond discipline. I'm going to press charges. Then, suddenly, my son-in-law smirked and said, "You have no evidence at all," and mocked me.
Who's going to believe what that kid says?
I have evidence. There should be medical records from the hospital. I showed him the pictures of Zoe from that time, which were saved on my phone.
When did you? Give that to me, you old hag.
Dylan lunged at me, trying to snatch my phone away. At that moment, someone came out of the next room and shouted, "Stop," and grabbed Dylan's arm to stop him. It was my son, Terry.
Why are you here? Let go of me.
Actually, I had told my son Terry about finding my granddaughter Zoe the day before, and he rushed over to help me. Held down by Terry, who had been trained in wrestling during his school days, Dylan looked pathetic. I know you took Alice's savings. I know you got violent when Alice found out about your affair and injured her. I'm sorry for the confusion. Here's the complete translation.
How do you know all that?
My son-in-law gave me a puzzled look. I heard it from Alice, my daughter.
Ha! Is she alive?
I told Dylan, who turned pale with surprise, about the circumstances when I met my daughter. As it turns out, the necklace my granddaughter was wearing had the key to my childhood home. Though it's now an empty house, I kept it as a memento. And at that moment, my granddaughter pleaded.
Mom said this necklace is her child. Mom is hurt. Please help her.
Upon hearing that, I found a ray of hope that my daughter might still be alive. I rescued my granddaughter and headed straight to my childhood home, which had become vacant, and I found Alice lying unconscious. Stay with me, Alice. I lifted her up.
Mom.
I heard her murmuring faintly.
Mom. I missed you.
Zoe also hugged her. I quickly called an ambulance, and my daughter was rushed to the hospital and she survived. According to the doctor, if we had been a little later, she might not have made it. Since Zoe was also in poor nutritional condition, she ended up being hospitalized along with her mother. Thus, I felt overwhelming joy from the bottom of my heart at my daughter's safe return, whom I had thought I might never see again. However, simultaneously, I felt my entire body burned with anger towards the person who had caused such suffering to my daughter and granddaughter. Afterwards, I heard the whole story from my daughter, who regained consciousness in the hospital, about how everything had happened. While cleaning, Alice found the evidence that Dylan had been cheating on her and used up her savings on his computer, and then she confronted him about it. She said that he flew into a rage and physically assaulted her, hitting and kicking her, which caused her injuries. In severe pain from being kicked in the stomach and feeling faint, Alice begged Dylan for help. However, he just laughed and walked away to the bedroom. She felt unsafe to stay at home any longer, so she decided to run away with Zoe, who helped her up. Although they managed to escape from the house, Alice realized that Dylan had taken her bank book, wallet and phone. They stumbled along for about an hour, and arrived at my childhood home. And my granddaughter Zoe, trying to help her mother, went home to get Alice's phone and wallet while she was sleeping, and she was caught by her father there. Despite being chained up, Zoe refused to tell Alice's whereabouts no matter how many times she was asked. Alice and Zoe almost lost their lives.
Well, Alice was pale and barely breathing. Even if they escaped, it was only a matter of time.
Dylan said it lightly.
Zoe wouldn't talk, and after that, there was no contact from anyone about her, so I just assumed she died somewhere out of sight.
Thinking his wife was dead, Dylan wrote a suicide note on the computer, making it look like Alice had taken her own life. Furthermore, he made it appear that Zoe was missing, locked her in a warehouse, and hoped she would eventually die there. Horrible.
It's just a marital spat. The affair was just a fling. Now, Alice is alive, aren't you not happy?
That's not that point. I've been recording this conversation. I'm reporting this to the police. Upon hearing the word police, Dylan suddenly panicked and began begging for forgiveness, kneeling down. It's just bewildering how suddenly he changed his attitude like that.
I'm sorry. I'll break up with my affair partner and I'll be kind to Alice from now on. Please don't involve the police.
I can't believe what you say. When I refused, he tried to cling to my arm.
If I get caught, Zoe will be fatherless. Is that what you want?
With tears in his eyes, Dylan desperately pleaded for mercy, but I pushed his hand away. She'd be better off without a father like you.
But...
At that moment, the police, called by my son, arrived, and Dylan was taken away in custody. After that, my daughter divorced him. Dylan received a prison sentence and ended up behind bars. Being convicted also led to him losing his job at the company. Alice demanded $100,000, which is the same amount of her savings from her single life and used up by Dylan. $20,000 in compensation for the affair and injuries caused, and $15,000 in child support. And she also demanded $10,000 in compensation from Dylan's affair partner, who was a junior colleague at the company. It seems Dylan intended to quickly throw away Alice's belongings and move in with his affair partner, but the affair partner wasn't serious about him. Dylan's parents learned of his actions, apologized to my daughter, and sold their land to pay compensation. However, they intended for Dylan to work and repay them once he was released from prison. Dylan is likely to face a difficult time even after he gets out of prison. My daughter and granddaughter got better and came back to me. Alice, now fully recovered, has started working and is enjoying a peaceful life. I'm also determined to stay strong and do my best for my daughter and granddaughter.